So this is a little different. Yeah, no toy review or unboxing. We're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna solve the Heisei timeline. One of my homies was watching Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, and he didn't understand how the time travel worked. So I'm gonna explain to him why everyone knows Godzilla, despite the fact that he should be erased from existence. So, here's our timeline. We start off with 1954. Alright, Godzilla attacks. And then the Oxygen Destroyer and the whole 54 movie happens. Then we fast forward 30 years later. 1984, Godzilla rises again and starts wreaking havoc. In 1989, he escapes Mount Mahara and Godzilla vs. Biollante begins. And then 1992, because that's the year in the movie, time travel. So we gotta go back like Marty McFly to 1944, the Godzilla Soar. Now, the time travelers, they take the Godzilla Soar and they teleport him away. So we're gonna put Godzilla Soar teleported away. Now you're probably thinking, just like him, but wouldn't everyone forget Godzilla because he teleported away? Here's the thing though. They teleported him away to a distance. Because see, they wouldn't forget Godzilla exists. Because not only do we have the 54 one, but the time travelers locked themselves into an alternate timeline, creating the Heisei Godzilla. Too far-fetched to believe? Well, my friends, allow me to elaborate more on this. So with the Godzilla sword being teleported away, he is teleported to a safer distance than Bikini Atoll because of the nuclear testing in that area. So, safe distance. Now, if he had stayed there, and if they hadn't time traveled, there would only be the one Godzilla, 1954, correct? Yes, correct. There would only be one. But since they teleport him to a safe distance, he can now... Oh, darn. Just put the wrong letter there. He can now absorb the nuclear fallout of CB. Okay, now, CB, what is that? That is the Castle Bravo test, and according to the lore, that is what creates 1954. Now, according to Big Action Bill on YouTube, shout out to the big guy himself, in his video, he sourced that the Godzilla here is the last of his kind because his others in his family were killed by the CB tests. Ergo, he wanted to get revenge. Now, Heisei Godzilla was created by this as well, because keep in mind, according to the history of Japan, the fallout from Castle Bravo led to the fish and the fish market being exposed to dangerous amounts of radiation and nuclear fallout. So, that fallout must have gotten to the corpse of Godzilla 1984, and thus created the Heisei Godzilla. And now, here comes the interesting part of King Ghidorah 1991. Now, how do we explain King Ghidorah? Well, the Dorats were also teleported to here, so we'll also put 1954 Dorats. Okay, these are the little guys, three little winged freaks. So we'll put 1, 2, 3. Okay, so those are the three little guys, and then they were nuclear. They were exposed to Bikini Atoll's nuclear testing, and quite possibly, because of that, they became Ghidorah. Actually, not quite possibly, that's what happened. So, they became Ghidorah, and my friend wanted to know, but wouldn't he be replacing Godzilla? No. Because you see, nuclear testing must have resulted in the three Dorats slowly fusing together. So I'll put slowly fusing the Dorats. Now, the radiation must take time, and as we saw, Godzilla 1954 went from a smooth-skinned monstrosity, a giant beast, a giant smooth-skinned dinosaur, to the monster we all know as Godzilla 1954. So, if it took him such a short amount of time to have the scars, the incandescent light, aka atomic breath, and the scales, then it must have taken the Dorats an even longer time to fuse together to become King Ghidorah. Because this Godzilla, keep in mind, this guy didn't show up until 1984. The Heisei era Godzilla did not make landfall until he came back in the mid-80s. That's 30 years after 1954. So it must have taken him a long time. And he is supposed to be 80 meters in 1984. 54 Godzilla was 50 meters tall. So that radiation takes time and harnessing. Ergo, Ghidorah took longer and thus didn't replace Godzilla. And what also works is he didn't know what to do. He awaits orders from the time travelers. So we're going to put KG follows orders and took longer to grow. Because you see, with Godzilla here, it didn't take him as long because he's the Godzilla source. He's already a big dinosaur, and then with the nuclear fallout and radiation of the times, and everywhere else in the nuclear waste that follows, it would be easy for him to become Godzilla. Because he would just be absorbing that radiation, and he was teleported to a safer distance than Bikini Atoll, because if he was there, he would have been completely blown to smithereens. Whereas this guy is a different creature entirely. He was already basically this big, and just imagine him with smooth skin and basically just dorsal fins instead of the spikes we all know and love. So it took him less time to radiate, and he was closer to the Castle Bravo tests. This guy was a little further and at a safe distance, and thus could absorb all of that radiation slowly and become the Godzilla we know of the Heisei era. And Ghidorah would take longer. Because Ghidorah doesn't know what to do, so he'd probably just hide out and wait until he finally receives orders from the Futurians. And there we go. That explains how Ghidorah was made, and how the Heisei era, how they wouldn't forget Godzilla, because they created him at this time. The time travelers are the ones at fault. They retroactively created Godzilla 1984. They created their own doom. So yeah, there is the Heisei timeline explained. I don't really need to explain anything else. There's no need to go forward with Batra and Mothra and all of that shenaniganisms, but that's what happened. King Ghidorah took longer because he was the three Dorats, the three tiny creatures, so it took long for them to fuse together, and then they had to wait and follow orders from the Futurians, and thus it took them a long time to grow. And they stayed hidden because, really, the confused Dorats probably wouldn't want to mess with this guy while he's around, or fight this dude who was slowly growing at the time. He was probably already this height when... He was probably already 54's height of 50 meters before the Dorats were fully ready to be Ghidorah. Because keep in mind, the Dorats went from super duper tiny little creatures the size of a cat, basically, to being taller than Godzilla. I think they're supposed to be like 120 meters in the movie as Ghidorah. So that's why it took so long. And that's why he didn't replace Godzilla, because he was in hiding, waiting for orders, and growing to be bigger than him. So yeah, that's the good old Heisei time travel continuity errors explained. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and stick around, because the next one we do is going to be a little something special that we do. Little, let's just say, prepare for your domination. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. See you guys in the next video.